Welcome to today's podcast. I've got a guest today that I'm real excited about. We're going to talk about his practicing and learning and development as a musician. And what he's done has been not short of just amazing. Asa, say hello.
Hi, how's it going?
Asa has been a student of mine for about 4 years now. Is that right?
This is the fourth year, yeah.
Yeah, good. And he's an electric bass player in general. He has had the double bass. I'll let him tell you his background. But what we did purposely was last January, almost a year ago right now, we started what we called the Year of the Double Bass.
Yeah.
And that was focus on the double bass. He's continued to play his electric, and we've studied a little bit. We bit off little projects. Like we're going to do 3 weeks of this. I think we only stopped playing the double bass for about 2 weeks total, right? That was it?
Yeah, there's a few weeks here and there. It was the beginning of the year and the end of the year.
Right. But in general, we did just double bass, and we might add a little bit of electric bass for a special project. He did memorize some R&B stuff we videoed.
Yeah.
And then he memorized some. No, the jazz stuff was all on double bass, wasn't it?
Both.
Yeah.
But I mean, we featured the double bass.
Right. Well, let me just ask you sort of a general, and then we'll get specific. Tell us about the Year of the Double Bass for you.
Well, it was at the end of last year. Actually, it was last year this time of year, and we had the double bass workout, and I kind of just fell in love with the process in that build up to the double bass workout, and I've always kind of plunked around on the double bass, and of course we had very specific things we worked on. But
when did you first touch a double bass? Wasn't it actually a long time ago?
It was quite a while ago. It was actually in, I would say, 2008 or 2009.
And did you own one at the time, or just pluck around on somebody else's?
I didn't. I was.
That's so common on the double bass.
Yeah, played on other people's. I'd find one in a guitar shop or something, and then play that and see what I liked about it. And then I bought one in 2010. And I went to the LA Bass Works in Los Angeles, and because that's where I'm from.
Picked out a bass,
and I just picked out. Well, my thought process back then, I didn't know anything. I said I wanted to get the biggest, most difficult bass for me to play, so that it would strengthen me up, so I can somehow play better.
Sure, I understand. Did that work?
No, not at all. It just made it harder. It made it a lot harder. But it was. Fast forward to last year.
Well, let me ask a question. During that time period when you got your bass, what was your typical, attention that you paid to that bass for 3 or 4 or 5 years?
Like what did I pay attention to?
Yeah, I mean, how often do you practice? Did you play it?
I did not practice hardly at all. I mean, it kind of was an art piece almost.
Just look good in the corner?
Looked good in the corner. I played it here and there, and I had like very specific sounds that I'd like to get out on that instrument that I couldn't on any other instrument, but it always just kind of had a special place in my heart, and I just kind of, I said, I know I'm going to be a good bass player, but I guess this isn't time for it right now.
Let me interject. That is so common. I don't know if you know this, but bassists, electric bassists. Now, I'm not talking about guys who start at the very beginning. I'm talking about guys who played electric bass, like you. At the time you bought that, how long had you been playing electric bass?
I would have been playing for probably I would say 10 years.
Yes. Guys who are playing the electric bass, sometimes it comes when they show up to college and see a bunch of other guys.
Yeah.
Or maybe they just meet a new friend or go to a town, there's double basses every place. But so many guys who play electric bass, they see the double bass and just, we say fall in love with it, but more of that, they're just thunderstruck with it. Love struck. Oh my God, I got to have it. So they buy themselves a double bass, and unfortunately, very common, they just can't play it.
Yeah.
It's just physically too challenging. They don't have a methodology of how to practice. They don't even know where to start. and they, sort of feel embarrassed. It's funny. They feel bad about really getting into studying and asking questions because they're already accomplished on the electric bass, and they have to start so much lower on the double bass, and the learning curve is just too steep, physically and also mentally, the challenge of it.
Oh, yeah.
So what you just described is not uncommon. Yeah, I've got a double bass. I never play the thing, but it looks good in the corner. But that happens.
Yeah, I mean, I did practice it, but not nearly as much as electric.
Did you ever play it out?
I did, actually. I had
Nice.
probably within the first couple of months, I had my first few gigs with the double bass. I didn't know what I was doing, though. I had no idea.
course.
I mean, everything was all just by ear, and I couldn't, I didn't know hand position, to save my life. I didn't know anything about the instrument at all. I just kind of said, yeah, I could play that,
Nothing wrong with that. It's just that it only lets you go so far.
Right.
And then you go, I need to learn how to play this sucker.
Right, and I didn't know how to practice. I didn't know what practice was on that instrument at all.
Bet.
So
now, fast forward. What
Yes.
got you really into the double bass? Say, let's go.
Well, I just kind of had this feeling at the end of that double bass workout last year, and I said, I think I just really this is time. It's time now. It's time to jump off the deep end, and let's just grab the bull by the horns.
What was the motivation, though? Was it seeing the other players in our community?
Seeing the other players in our community, my ability to listen to music better, kind of
Just from general study,
Yeah,
you
just-
started paying more attention to the double bass, didn't
yeah,
you?
and being able to actually hear it better and with a lot more clarity, and it really kind of, I mean, it plucked at my heartstrings. It said,
course.
wow, I was just kind of enamored with that deep sound, that lovely sound, and
course.
it just, now my ears are more advanced than they were 4 years ago. I said I want to do it.
Isn't that so interesting? There are many things in life that are sort of an acquired taste, but more than an acquired taste, there are many things that you go, I like that, but as you hear it more and more and more, you go, now I appreciate it.
Yes.
And then you go, my God, maybe I can.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, it's like you have to warm up to it. You have to get used to it. When I first heard the double bass, I don't mean the first time I heard it, but I went to college to be a jazz player, playing electric bass, and the first album this guy, my teacher, Bill Veely, gave to me was an Oscar Peterson record with Ray Brown, and I put it on, and it was an album, so I listened to the first track, about a minute, and I went, and I scratched over to the second track and went, scratched about the fourth track, I went, I can't do this. I tried to like it, but I took it back to him the next week and he said, man, what'd you think? Wasn't that great? And I remember saying, Bill, it just sounded like thump thump.
Yeah.
I actually, my ears, I couldn't hear it. We hear the sound, but it's just an indistinct bum, 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 bum. And we can't hear the pitch. We don't hear the tone. We don't hear the... Yeah. As with many people who don't study, who aren't into the double bass, they couldn't tell what kind of a bass it is on a record, if it's double bass or not.
Right.
So would you say the association and just seeing other people play it a bunch, was that what, got you appreciating it?
Yeah, I think so. I think the there's a couple of different genres of music that are newer, more contemporary, like rockabilly and stuff like that, that showcase the double bass, and so that kind of piece of like new age Americana that's in the where the double bass is a spectacle. It kind of opened my eyes.
Spectacle, exactly.
It opened my eyes, and I'm like, oh, okay, so there's people that actually play it like within rock bands and stuff.
Right.
I was like, okay, that's interesting. So it was kind of in the purview, and I just kind of sat and watched and looked around, and I bought that 1/7/8 bass that I have, and that's just kind of where it started.
So that would have been what, maybe 2 years ago? 3 years ago?
No, that was 10 years ago.
Oh,
that was in
you're
2000.
talking about the first bass.
Yeah, the first bass that I bought.
Right. When you said, I was thinking that's the 7/8, so the big one, of
Yeah.
course. Big bass for a great, big, tall person like you.
Yeah,
are.
I know, I'm 5'7", and so reaching around that thing, I mean, the upper bout, and it's just like, it's huge. It's a huge bass,
Yeah,
so
of course.
it was kind of, looking back, it's kind of silly that I decided to do it that way, but
So you came over here, or you started studying with me on electric bass.
yes.
Went through a couple of jazz bass workouts where there were other guys playing double basses, and you were on the electric bass.
Yes.
And I can't remember. I probably could if I thought a lot about exactly what you said and when you said, but it was just something about, hey, do you think I could get into the double bass too?
Yeah, I said I think I'm ready to do double bass. What do
Yeah.
you think?
Oh,
And
you
then-
brought your bass over too. I remember it now. Mm-hmm. And I went, this is big and it's hard to play.
Yeah.
I remember that very well.
And along with the bow that I had.
Oh,
that
of
was
course.
terrible.
Yeah,
you have it around you.
The
somewhere.
bow's like a 25-cent one.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm being rude, but
It's terrible.
but it's not much more than that. Yeah, terrible one. So we got your bass you have now, the
Yes.
American Standard. What year is that one?
That's a 1938
Woo,
pre-war.
beauty, isn't it?
Yeah.
His is very unique too. I mean, not very unique. It's the standard American Standard bass of that era. But one thing that is unique about it is it looks like it was never painted. Now, I think it was,
Yeah.
because they wouldn't have let a bass go out of the shop. It was a factory in those days. Wouldn't let it go out of the factory if it hadn't had a finish on it. But I think somebody didn't like the finish, or the finish wore off, or whatever.
That's what it looks
it's
like.
set outside, and somebody sanded it. It's obvious it's obvious it's beyond just the finish wore off. No, somebody eventually took all the finish off and go, okay, now it's down to natural wood. I'm going to paint it, color it, whatever, and they never did.
Yeah.
And it looks totally cool.
Yeah, it's kind of beat up, but I mean the sound is there. I mean,
Oh, it's an excellent sounding instrument.
yeah.
Yeah. And the big thing about that for me, as you'll remember, was, and this is important, maybe I should address it for a moment. Folks, when you get ready to play the double bass, don't get something weird.
Yeah.
Don't get something that's huge. Don't get something that's a little toy. Hey, if I get a 5/8 size, it's easier to play. No, just get a standard 3/4 size double bass. I think I wrote this. I did in one of the books, and it's not an exaggeration. I have seen everything from aluminum basses, fiberglass basses. I've seen double basses with a cutaway. Why? Because it's easier to play. I've seen 5/8 basses, and just endless stuff that some people think it's going to be easier. Folks, it's not going to be easy. But if you love the sound, it's a sacrificial labor of love. So the big thing I was concerned with was we get you an instrument that was the right size. And of course, too, it's vital that you have an instrument, in my opinion, that speaks, just like any instrument. I don't want something that's stiff and hard to play. By the way, you know how that works, don't you? Mom wants to, little Johnny's, 13 years old, 12 years old, and they think he's going to be a musician, or truthfully, they want to babysit him for an hour. So they go to the music store and they say, great, sign up for lessons. The problem is they get him an $89 guitar, the cheapest lessons going with the worst teacher, and they wonder why the little kid wants to quit after 4 lessons. The guitar sounds terrible. It's hard to play. It hurts. It won't stay in tune. The teacher's going, yo, bro, and and they're playing a lot of rain stick. They just shoot themselves in the foot. Well, I wanted you to have a bass that was the right size, but also sounded good. And it's a cheaper instrument, so it doesn't sound like a top class instrument. But I wanted one that was loose and had a nice vibration. Yeah. And I have owned and encouraged, brought many of my students to the original American Standard bass, which was always just loose and warm sounding, and yours was in prime shape.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about, the year of the double bass. You've worked on it for a year. Where did you start? What was the hard part? Where did you,
man.
Yeah.
Well, there were definitely a few hurdles that you kind of guided me towards, because you said, you knew how I would react to.
Sure, I knew that what was going to come up.
Yeah, what was going to come up, all the problems and all the hardships, all the easy parts, what was going to hurt, and I guess just starting off I would say the first couple of 2 to 3 months, the first 3 months, it was painful. My ribs hurt
Physically,
my spine, my shoulders hurt. I mean, you're standing in a way that you're standing and sitting in a way that you don't normally, and so
Right.
your body has to adjust, and it's going to hurt.
Yes.
And your hands hurt, of course, obviously.
Of
And I think that just the repetition of the very first stuff, which was scales, that was the number one hard part. I mean, I'm still going throughout the different permutations and variants of the cycle, fourths, and there's hard parts here and there, but it's much easier now. But I mean, it's like you said, it's a labor of love. I mean, you have to really just dig in and
So you got past the physical part. I don't know, a couple of months.
Yeah.
And by the way, again, that's the number one reason people don't sort of make the shift, and that is they get the double bass, and it's just hard physically. I mean, you can pick up the electric bass, and if you've played it for 6 months or a year or two, it's sort of like a toy. Yeah, you get out of shape, but it's not like you're puffing and sweating and your back's hurting and your arms hurt. No, you just kind of practice the thing for a few hours. Okay, now my fingers are going again. So that hump which can be a few months, it can be a year or two. That hump, it's there, and you did it. Congratulations to you.
Thanks. I had no idea.
I know. Most people don't. That's another thing. People think they're going to practice a double bass an hour or two a week and accomplish it. Folks, that's like getting in shape by going to the gym an hour or two a week. No, it needs to be an hour or two a day. Everybody knows that. It's just a physical instrument, simple as that. So that's the number one challenge right there, getting the correct instruments. And that's why people get weird instruments. I'm going to get one that's easier. I'm going to get myself a stick bass, a bass with no body. Well, you got a fingerboard, you got a fretless electric bass with no body. How's that? I mean, no, the double bass pushes air and it's physically large and it's hard.
Yeah, it's almost cheating doing it like that, because you kind of have to go through all the steps.
It's not only cheating, it's cheating yourself, because
Right.
I've also never seen anyone who said, man, I'm going to go to the stick bass, and they just loved it and took off and learned to play.
Right.
No, it's just, it's a false step is what it is.
Totally.
It's not just a step two. So for the first year or so, we didn't really play much Arco.
Right. The first half of this year, it was pits.
Yeah.
For the most part.
Right. Well, even before this year, the year of the double bass, you learned a number of jazz things.
Oh, yeah.
You were playing a scale, and you were playing some Paul Chambers. And by the way, Ace is the kind of guy that he just says, hey, man, I like the sound of this. I say, go for it. And he learns it. Now, my job is, of course, trying to get everything into shape so we can build good habits with the things he's doing, and that'll last down the road.
Yeah.
So you were playing pits, and you learned some jazz. You're playing some walking bass line. You learned a Paul Chambers. I remember that. You learned an etude. But then the first of the year, when I said, let's do this, if you're going to do this year of the double bass, let's play some serious Arco.
Yes.
And do you remember what made a world of difference?
What was that?
The bow.
Oh, absolutely. It's in terms of like sound and just my progress.
And
100%.
and the quality of the bow.
100%.
He had that 25-cent bow.
Oh, you're going there. Okay.
Yeah. And meaning most people don't understand it. If you're going to play Arco, this thing that you're holding called the bow, it is equally as important as the bass or an amplifier or anything else.
Well, when you first got the American Standard that I'm playing now,
Right.
That was kind of earlier on. That was probably into like my second year of study with
Right,
you.
yes.
And so I had it. We just never dove into it like we did this year.
Right.
So there's no designation for it quite yet. And then at the time we also got a bow that was by
Yes.
what was
It was a
the-
carbon fiber
carbon
one.
fiber
I forget
one,
the
yeah.
name.
Oh,
but yeah.
yeah, darn, I forgot the name of it, but
That at least got you going.
yeah,
It
that
wasn't
got
a 25-cent bow.
Yeah, it got me
Didn't smell like
kickstarted.
bubble gum.
Yeah, exactly. It was a decent student bow.
Yeah.
But then I started running into problems when I was learning, Arco.
Yes.
And I started realizing, man, I can't get past this thing keeps screeching, something or the notes are really dead, and I was
Yes.
like really banging my head
Or I'm
against
just
the wall.
getting fundamental and not I'm just getting harmonic and not a good fundamental.
And it was bizarre because I was like, Jim, I'm sleepless. I come into the studio A, and my eyes are just black like the raccoon eyes, and I was just like, I've been trying to figure out what's going on, and then he gave me this really beautiful bow.
You betcha.
And
I forget who made that bow.
I forget too.
I'll think of it in just
yeah,
a
I forget
second.
the,
It's a
the
bow I've had
maker's
for
names.
years.
Yes.
I bought one similar, sold it. Mark Minkler had bought one, the bow you have now, at the same time.
Yes.
And then I bought it from him whenever I bought a Hawks Panoma from him.
Yes.
I don't know why I can't remember, but I'll think of it in a minute.
That
Point is
bow,
it's a top class bow.
top class. I mean, and that really opened my eyes to wow. It made the bass sound leagues better.
betcha.
I mean, it
You
was
betcha.
incredible just overnight what I was able to do with that bow. And that just kind of kept me going. Like you just put these little seeds and
Sure.
I just kind of followed along.
Well, that's
and-
part of teaching and learning. I can't, the student who says, I want to know it all, give me more. Well, that's like turning on a freaking fire hose. I'm thirsty here. No, it's just got to be a little drink at a time.
Yeah.
And the time that I gave you that bow was when you were playing and practicing well enough that I could see the bow was hampering your development.
Mm-hmm.
That's how that happens with basses and bows, totally.
Yeah.
there are points where you're doing stuff and the instrument just does not respond, or it responds in a way that you try to compensate. Typically with the bow, if you don't have a good enough bow, you end up starting to play too hard, too much pressure, trying to get a bigger sound, you get a good bow that moves the string, and all of a sudden everything's easy. Doesn't mean you can't practice, but all of a sudden just doing the right motions produces a good quality sound.
Yes. Yeah. And again, I wouldn't have ever known. I mean, is to begin with, the there's quality instrument, and now there's quality bows that you have to really consider. And it, like you said, if I didn't know any better, I mean, it would just completely hamper my development, and I would probably grow tired.
Of course,
I would probably not be able to do much beyond that point.
And it wouldn't inspire you because you go, well, it just doesn't sound that nice.
Right, it's not a motivator when you sound bad.
And there's a lot of things about a good bow, but from a cheaper bow to a good bow, we're just simply talking about it draws the fundamental from the instrument.
Yes.
It's not that it's heavier. Some of them are a little heavier, but the point is the quality of everything just draws more fundamental, and you go, oh, that's nice. And there's less screeching and switching around and harmonic overtone stuff. So that was a big one that I saw.
Huge.
A big, step for you when you finally, and just like everything else, we're fortunate enough that we see each other all the time. You live close, you come here for lessons, that I had to, sort of speak, give it to you. The point, no, maybe I back up. You had to convince yourself, you had to go home and test it over and over and over and over.
Yes.
Side by side. And then the real thing happens when you go, I say, have you played your old bow? And you say, no, not in about a week or so. I say, go home and play it. And that's when you really go, oh my God.
Yeah, I don't want to touch it. Yeah. It's incredible. I mean,
yeah, it is.
But along with that, though, the big idea, I guess, for me with that in mind, with a nicer bow, is it got me to listen to my intonation a lot clearer.
Oh, of course.
So the intonation was like the next big hurdle. I'm pretty sure.
No, agreed. You can hear. Let me back up. When you can hear better, well, you can hear better.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, on electric basses, like say a fretless, there are some fretless basses that are just designed cheap enough and pickups bad and whatever that you just don't hear the pitch as well. You just don't hear the timbre as well. You get a higher quality, and you go, oh my God, I can hear it.
Yeah. What was I doing that for?
Yes, exactly. It's just like any instrument. You get a better speaking, quicker responding, open instrument, and all of a sudden you can hear your technique or lack thereof.
Yes.
Yeah. So that was a big step. Let's go back and talk a little bit about, now that we've basically finished or come to the end of the year of the double basses.
Yeah.
Name me 2 or 3 of the really marked, obvious benefits that this has given you as a musician overall. I mean, obviously you're a better bass player on the double bass, but what else?
It's made I made mention before. It's made me a much better listener. Mm-hmm. With that big bass, you have to kind of slow down. You can't just, wiggle your fingers and presto changeo. You really have to dig in. You really have to listen. You have to be a part of the fabric of the sound.
Sure.
And so therefore your listening skills become a lot more tuned.
You betcha.
The other thing would be that all that muscle memory and all that clarity of sound and that kind of learning translates to electric bass like none other. I mean, it makes you it just reinforms your playing across the board, and you become a better electric bass player.
As I said, let me make this real clear. Studying the double bass has made you a better electric bass player.
100%.
You bet. And what's the main reason? Because of being able to hear?
Being able to hear better. And I don't know, it just I guess just being able to have that, I don't know how to explain it. It's like it's the quality of the sound, and it's also just the pain of it all kind of, it just makes everything easier.
I might be able to describe it a little bit.
Yeah.
On the electric bass, fairly quickly, one can just grab the bass and play all over the place.
Yes.
It doesn't mean it sounds good. It doesn't mean it's clean, but they can just sort of play all over the place. The double bass, you can't do that. You can sort of fake it, but it hurts like after 90 seconds. So you have to focus on developing technique.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, the fact that you do Then you start thinking about, hey, how's my technique on the electric bass?
Yeah, the technique
Maybe I can
translates.
focus more there.
Yeah,
maybe I should do this. And
Good
sure,
point. That's really it. Yeah, it's the technique and just the complete repetition of technique
Right.
on that big thing, and how it translates to electric bass. It just makes everything a lot more flawless. It makes everything more fluid,
cool.
and so your quality of sound just kind of goes whoop, way up.
Cool.
Yeah.
What about reading music?
Oh yeah, that's no man's land. Especially there's so much in reading with the double bass that has also translated to electric bass,
Yeah.
and it's made me a better reader for sure.
Yep.
I guess it's just having to memorize hand positions that are a lot longer and wider. That when you come to a smaller instrument, it's a lot more manageable. But it's really developed my reading, my focus on reading. So I mean, other than the reading days that we have, it's just in my private study.
Think of it this too. The way your daily practice and study often, or a good chunk of it, involves looking at a written page.
Correct. Yes.
Now, of course, there's study you do that we just work on sound, intonation, time, groove, feel, but a whole bunch of it, there's actually notation in front of you.
Yes, most of the time.
Right. So that in itself is just more practice in reading.
Yes.
Also, to think of it this way, on the double bass, you can't see it in tune. Well, you can look if you want, but you very quickly, you start to trust yourself to remember the muscle memory, the shape, the physical, and then you translate that to electric bass. Not it's the same one, but you go, oh, I can just remember my shapes here as opposed to look down and see what note it is.
That was one of the hard ones for me. I remember the first 3 months, I kept looking at my hands just nonstop. I can't, And now I'm learning to really trust myself and really just really feel it out, and it's.
Consequently, your sound, intonation, everything is just, it's grown by leaps and bounds.
Hey, thanks. I feel good about it now. I feel after the first year, I actually can say I feel good about this instrument.
Hey, you're a real bass player, a real double bass player. Excuse me. You're a bass player too, but you are now a bona fide double bass player.
Hey, thanks.
What else? I've got a few more thoughts, but anything you can think about that, the impact that it's had for you, or maybe something you want to say to other people trying to learn to play the double bass?
I mean, as you say, it's really all about repetition, and you did make mention of people quitting early, prematurely, or it hurts too much. It's maybe it's just not for me. It's because they don't know what I now know, what you've put me through, and it's just step by step. I mean, it's slow, consistent battles, and that wins the day. I mean, that wins the war, right? I mean, so it's a lot of repetition. It is a lot of pain, but once you get over those kinds of humps, I mean, it's so freeing, and it enables you on other instruments. It makes you a better player. It makes you listen. It makes you read better. It makes you everything better. So I'm happy to be at this stage in my voyage.
Plus, is there anything like the sound and feel of that double bass?
No other sound, nothing like it. That's why I dove into it.
Yeah, same here. When I first heard the double bass, when I first heard it, I went, "What's that thump thump?" But then when I recognized it, I realized, I went, "Oh my God, listen to the beauty of that!"
Yeah,
sure, just that wood, ooh, baby.
Yes,
that's the ticket. So now we've basically started, just a month or so ago, transitioning into year 2 of the double bass with classical music.
Correct.
Yes. Tell them what you're working on.
Right now, I'm working out of the beginner's Bach book.
What's it called? I forget.
Bach for the beginning bass player.
For the young bassist.
For the young bassist, yeah.
It's a great one. Those are beautiful.
And so it's a compilation of, I believe, 10 different exercises, different shapes of sound that Bach used.
They're beautiful little melodies he wrote.
They really are. And so I'm just starting into my second one of those. You have assigned me Ave Maria by Gounod and Bach.
Cool.
And it's a very beautiful solo melody that I'm getting down in different keys. And I'm just excited to be at this stage. I never thought I'd be playing classical, getting into the classical literature. And so that's really exciting in itself for me. But yeah, just kind of spreading my wings with Arco now. It's kind of a it's a different battle. It's a different struggle, but it's one that is going to be worth it. I know it.
Oh, for sure. I remember a couple of points too along the way that just, it just upped your game and got you excited and really got you. And that was when we started studying walking over D minor.
Yes.
Yeah. You just got into that feel, that groove, that D minor stuff, those cool shapes, and then the ones that were going up the fingerboard.
That book was probably responsible for me to want to call this the year of the double bass and just
agreed.
Go full string.
Yeah, you're going, I love this, let's get serious. You got it.
100%. That's when I started hearing better. That's when I started listening more. Just walking bass lines.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
And then another one, of course, was when you started learning and playing PC.
Yes.
Now, what are the PC pieces you're working on now?
Oh gosh, I forget which one. Which is the one that I'm working on right now?
You got two of the walking bass lines from Rob's book.
Yes.
One's called the Twister.
The
other one's called Double Up.
Double Up.
The Twister's rhythm changes.
Yes.
And Double Up is a blues.
Correct. Before though, we did a few PC solos.
You bet.
Too.
But now we're into a new solo. What's the new solo?
I forget.
Chasing the Bird.
Is it Chasing the Bird? Yeah, that's the one. Chasing the Bird.
Interesting. You're going, I don't know. Hey, I don't know him either, except I've been teaching and playing for about 40 years.
Yeah, it's so funny because the language of Paul Chambers, it's so hard for me to remember the songs. I have to work on that.
Oh, you will. By the way, after another 20 years, it'll just be easy.
He's because right. the melodic beauty of his playing, to me it all kind of blends together because it's just that's how I know. That's how I'm reminded of Paul Chambers. It's just all his music is like just one big,
Wait till we get into Gary Carr.
Yeah, that's
when you've got a little more technique, a little more control of the ball. We'll start learning some of the standard bass literature. How will we learn it? By copying and playing along with Gary Carr.
That will be a day. Yeah. That will be I'm excited.
When Gary came to our New Hampshire Bass Fest, about 3 summers ago now?
Yes.
I assume most of you know how Gary Carr plays. If you don't, go look him up online. He's definitely the virtuoso of this century. But what was really cool was he was playing for us in this room of maybe 60, 80 people, that's all. And every single person in the room swore that he was playing to them. Not only did it sound beautiful, but he spoke to each person.
The mark of a true master.
Exactly. He got beyond the instrument, and he's just sharing his message through his music.
Yes.
You bet. We'll get to that point, too, I assure you. And the reason I think I can say that is you and I have already talked a bunch about this year of the double bass. Mm-hmm. Well, it's lifetime of the double bass, I think now, isn't it?
Oh, 100%.
We'll call this year 2, but yeah, right.
I've already kind of accepted the fact that it's a lifelong study.
Exactly.
It's this kind of instrument. You're not just it's not like a couple of years. And
right, doctor, it's terminal.
Yeah.
I'm not getting out of this.
Yeah, it is a lifelong pursuit, and I look forward to it.
You bet. I am so impressed, Asa, with your stick-to-itness, your dedication. Of course, it's the practice. I mean, that's part of it. Your growth and your dedication, your commitment grows with the amount of practice. But you have to first decide, I'm going to do it, and then hold yourself accountable. And I'm so impressed with that because I have watched way too many guys get excited about the double bass and then give up because the journey it got a little bumpy. The road got a little rocky and hard and a little painful. And so what, man? If you love the thing, like I said earlier, it's just a sacrificial labor of love.
Totally.
I didn't learn to play half as quickly as you are. I swear it took me a number of years to not have pain and all that kind of stuff and to get to where I could play kind of in tune. It just took me a long time. So what? I love the instrument. I love the sound. I love the feel. Just, man, get after it.
I mean, it's in the past on electric bass, people have called me all sorts of stuff like, fanatic. And honestly, it's that fanaticism that drives me.
Of course.
And so when I'm in my practice room and when I'm, doing my private study, I lock myself in there and I'm working it all out.
Of course.
I'm making sure that I will not have any more pain. I just keep going and going. You know,
Gotcha.
that's and you know, it excites me because after it's all, you know, said and done, I can come here and kind of present it.
Of course.
And it's just like, oh, okay, next level.
That's right. Well, you've got an in-home critic and fan too. Doesn't Jenny like it every time
Jenny
you play
loves
better?
it. Yeah.
My wife used to go, God, I'm glad you got that E2 down. It used to. I'm not. It sounds beautiful. So that's what she meant was, it sounded so bad for so long.
She was able to see the entire progress of this year too, or
course.
listen to this entire progress, and she definitely says that I sound much better than when I first started.
For sure.
Cats screeching and stuff
Exactly.
was where it started.
But I'm so impressed with your commitment, and man, just keep after it. There's nothing you can't do. I assure you.
Thanks. I intend to
Sky's the
go forward.
limit, man.
Mm-hmm.
Sky's the limit. Whew. I love it. Anything else you want to add?
I love the double bass. There needs to be more double bass players
You bet.
for sure.
Thanks for coming over. Appreciate it.
Absolutely, Jim.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye bye now.